To begin to find happiness, we need to look inward. It is not about escaping from what hurts, but about having the courage to explore every corner of our inner world, even those we usually avoid. The shadows are not our enemies. They are parts of us that are asking to be seen, understood, and embraced with the same love with which we celebrate our strengths. Accepting all that we are, the good, the difficult, and what is still a work in progress, is the first essential step to growing from a true and genuine place. Because happiness doesn't come from denying what we feel, but from honoring it and cultivating the very best that exists within us. True happiness isn't a trophy you win at the end of the race, nor is it a brilliant shining goal that magically appears when everything is perfectly in order. No, happiness is a constant journey, sometimes sweet and sometimes brutal. It is about being in the midst of chaos, when life rips something you loved away from you, and still choosing not to shut yourself off from the world. It's about losing someone, hitting rock bottom, or waking up one day without the desire to go on, and still managing to learn something valuable from that moment. True happiness is neither comfortable nor perfect. It is a profound process full of learning, of patience with oneself, and of pauses to truly look within. We need to open our minds and hearts to experience everything with wisdom, even what we don't understand at first. Because on that journey, the love we have for who we are and for what we experience is not merely an ornament. It is the vital engine that sustains everything. Happiness doesn't hide in what we buy, or in how many compliments we receive. It is not found in accumulating achievements or in pretending to have a perfect life. Sometimes we have everything that many people would wish for: a good job, a beautiful house, recognition, and yet we still feel a deep void. Why is this? Because what truly matters is not on the outside, but deeply rooted within us. True happiness is born when we are able to value the simple things: waking up with energy, being able to breathe without pain, having a clear thought after days of mental turmoil. The physical and mental health we sometimes take for granted is one of the greatest gifts we can acknowledge and appreciate. You don't need everything to be going well to feel gratitude. It is enough to just realize what is going right. Being grateful isn't about romanticizing life. It is about learning to see the beauty in the midst of the mess, in a warm cup of coffee after you were finally able to get some sleep, in an unexpected phone call, or in a moment of silence where you breathe deeply and realize that you are here, and that in itself is already a lot. Once during one of his workshops, a deeply affected woman approached him. She was ill, resentful, and emotionally shattered from years of abuse and abandonment. Louise listened to her with complete presence, and with a loving calmness, he asked her something that took everyone by surprise: "Are you willing to forgive?" The woman burst into tears. She said no, that what had been done to her was unforgivable. Louise didn't pressure her. He simply said, "You don't do it for them, you do it for yourself, because as long as you hold on to that pain, they continue to have power over your life. But you can let go, you can set yourself free." It wasn't an immediate change, but that woman returned some time later. She had begun practicing affirmations in front of the mirror, something Louise taught as a fundamental tool, and little by little, she started to see herself with new eyes. Her health improved, her energy changed, and most importantly, she reclaimed her inner power. That story lived by Louise Hay is not just a testament to transformation. It is a powerful reminder of something we sometimes forget, that happiness is not about what happened to us, but about what we choose to do with what happened. Because as long as we hold on to resentment, guilt, or pain as if they were protective armor, we also close the doors to joy, rest, and inner peace. You cannot be truly happy while you live imprisoned in the past. That's why that moment of decision that yes, I am willing to forgive was not just an emotional choice, it was an act of profound self-love. Happiness does not come when everything outside is fixed. It comes when we begin to let go from within. It comes when we stop demanding perfection from ourselves and start talking to ourselves with tenderness. When we give ourselves permission to start over, sometimes that happiness begins in front of a mirror, looking into our own eyes and saying, "I forgive you, I love you, I am here for you." Being happy also means surrendering to what we cannot control, not with resignation, but with deep wisdom. There are certain things that will not change no matter how much we fight, and letting go of that need to have everything under control is a way of freeing ourselves. Letting go of attachment to material things, stopping measuring our worth by what we have or lose, and beginning to trust in the natural flow of life is an act of faith. True happiness is cultivated within, in the peace we feel when we stop running, in that instant when we breathe deeply and finally connect with who we are beyond the noise. Because it's not about the grand conquests or the perfect moments that rarely arrive. Real happiness is found in the everyday, in that hug that holds you when you need it most, in a spontaneous laugh that restores your hope, in a conversation without masks with someone who truly sees you. It's those simple human gestures that remind us that life, even with all its imperfections, is worth living from the heart. To be truly happy, we need to return to ourselves, make silence, and listen to ourselves in a world that never stops. Learning to stop becomes a profound act of love. Sometimes it's only in the stillness, in a conscious breath, in a few minutes of meditation, or simply by closing our eyes, that we find answers that no one outside can give us. Connecting with oneself is fundamental, because if we are not present with what we feel, we end up looking for happiness in places where there is only distraction. And when we disconnect from our inner selves, we also miss the greatest gift of all, peace. But we are also not made to walk this path alone. The relationships that nourish, that respect, that embrace without conditions are also a crucial part of the journey. A friend who listens to you without judgment, a family member who accompanies you in silence. By surrounding ourselves with real bonds where there is love without demands, we feel seen and supported, and that also fills us with joy. Happiness is also born when we stop comparing ourselves, when we truly understand that each person is living a unique process with different rhythms, with battles that are often unseen. We are not here to compete or to fit into other people's molds. We are here to discover who we truly are and to honor our own unique path. Accepting diversity is not only recognizing that others are different, but also embracing our own differences without guilt or shame. Everyone has a special purpose, something they came here to contribute to the world, and you don't need to be perfect to start living it. When we stop looking externally for validation and begin to recognize the value in who we are, something shifts within us. We start to walk with more certainty, with more calmness, and that step towards authenticity is one of the most powerful we can take on the path to our own happiness. Part of the journey toward happiness is discovering what truly lights us up inside and having the courage to pursue it. It doesn't matter if it's writing, cooking, helping others, creating art, teaching, designing, or building with your hands. When we use our talents, however simple they may seem, to contribute something to the world, we feel that our life has a deeper, more profound meaning. It's not about being famous or having thousands of followers. Sometimes, contributing is simply preparing a meal with love, accompanying someone through a difficult time, or creating something that inspires another person to believe in themselves. That also leaves a lasting mark. And when we dare to dream big, when we are not content with just surviving but choose to live with intention, we are leaving behind a legacy, an example of bravery, authenticity, and love that others will also feel. So what would you do today if you stopped being afraid and started believing in the value of what you carry within? Generosity is also a profound pillar on the path to happiness. When we give from the heart, without expecting recognition or reward, something inside us expands, serving others, offering support, being present for someone who needs it are actions that transform not only the other person, but also ourselves. You don't need to make grand gestures. Sometimes a simple, "I'm here," a sincere look, or a silent act of kindness has a more profound impact than we can imagine. By sharing the best of ourselves, our attention, our time, our energy, we become beacons that illuminate even the darkest days of someone else. That is where happiness grows in a quiet yet powerful way. Because knowing that we made someone's life a little more bearable, a little lighter, or more hopeful connects us with a peace that cannot be bought or sought. It is lived from within. To live a genuine happiness, we need to observe what is happening in our minds carefully, because the thoughts we feed ourselves every day can either propel us forward or silently sabotage us. Being aware of that internal dialogue is the first step to freeing ourselves from the beliefs that limit us, from the judgments that wear us down, and from the demands that rob us of our peace. Caring for our well-being is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And it's not just about sleeping well or eating healthy, although those things are also important. It's about giving ourselves space to breathe, to stop, and to listen to ourselves. The body speaks to us when we are at our limit. Our emotions whisper to us when something is not right. And if we don't pay attention to those signals, we end up extinguishing our inner light. Self-care is not selfishness. It is self-respect. It is consciously choosing what is good for us, what adds to our lives, what restores our balance. Because only when we are in tune with ourselves can we sustain a life where happiness is not an exception but a way of being. There is a part of happiness that is not achieved by fighting, but by letting go. Accepting what we cannot change does not mean giving up. It means recognizing that some things are not up to us, and that holding on only causes weariness. We cannot control everything, and the sooner we understand that, the closer we will be to peace. Going with the flow of life's challenges without constant resistance or internal struggle is one of the most profound ways to care for our well-being. Because many times, it's not what happens that exhausts us, but the way we fight against it. Finding a balance between doing and stopping, between moving forward and resting, is essential. Happiness does not live in constant productivity or in the pressure to do everything. It lives in those moments where we choose to care for our mental health, to say, "Today I need calm," and to simply allow ourselves to be. In a world that is always in a hurry, having the courage to slow down is also an act of self-love. Living authentically is one of the bravest and most liberating decisions we can make if we truly want to be happy. It is not about building a perfect image to please others or following paths that don't feel like our own. It's about honoring what we truly need and what we deeply desire, even if that challenges the expectations of others. Being authentic is not about shouting who you are. It is about having the coherence to live in harmony with what you feel, think, and do. It is about respecting yourself when something doesn't feel right. It is about choosing consciously, even if that means going against the current. Following our instincts and listening to that intuition that we often try to silence reconnects us with a power that is already within us. And when we live from that place, from our truth, a different kind of happiness appears, one that doesn't depend on external approval, but on being at peace with who we are. Overcoming our fears and limitations by daring to explore new experiences is an essential part of personal growth. Every mistake becomes a valuable lesson that allows us to grow and evolve. As we face challenges, we must learn to forgive both others and ourselves, to free ourselves from the burdens that prevent us from moving forward in life. Letting go of the past is not about forgetting. It is about deciding that the pain will no longer have control. It is about ceasing to live with our gaze fixed on what didn't happen and starting to make space for what can be, because as long as we remain tied to old wounds and resentments, we close ourselves off to the present and the future. When we let go, we don't lose, we free ourselves. We stop carrying what weighs us down. And in that act of releasing, clarity begins to appear. Peace returns, and happiness finally has space to flourish. Sometimes, to feel alive again, we just need to look at the simple things, connect with nature, get away from the noise, walk barefoot, or silently watch a sunrise. It reminds us that we are part of something bigger, something wiser, and that in the midst of everything, life continues to speak to us softly. The breeze, the song of the birds, the color of the sky at sunset are silent reminders that we can always start over, that even in the most everyday things there is beauty waiting to be noticed. Happiness is not built from excess, but from truth. It's not about doing more, running more, or proving more, but about being more honest with what we feel, more faithful to what we need, more present in what we are experiencing. Living with authenticity is allowing ourselves to stop pretending to fit in and to start living in harmony with who we truly are. That's where happiness begins to be cultivated. When we stop pretending and start inhabiting our own skin with calmness and without guilt, expanding our consciousness is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who we are beneath all the layers. And when every experience, even the most difficult one, becomes an opportunity to understand ourselves better, we start to find meaning in things that used to go unnoticed. By balancing what we do with who we are, without betraying ourselves or demanding that we be someone else, we create a fertile inner space where happiness can naturally begin to flourish, little by little. Happiness doesn't live in a someday or a when everything is okay. It lives here in this moment, in what you are feeling right now, in who you are, even with everything that is still a work in progress. The present is the only place where we can truly experience life. When we stop chasing an ideal future or looking back with regret, we begin to discover the beauty of what is already right in front of us. Giving ourselves over to the instant without distractions or judgments is a transformative act of presence, and that is where gratitude becomes our best ally. Because when you are grateful, you stop taking for granted what you have, your body that breathes, your mind that learns, the small things that sustain your day, appreciating who we are, what we have been through, and what we can still create. That in itself is happiness. When we embrace life with love, with sincere joy, and with an open attitude, something inside us softens and happiness begins to find its way back. Because we don't have to force it or chase it, we just have to open a space for it to arrive. True happiness is not found in what we achieve on the outside, but in how we choose to live on the inside, in every daily decision, in every thought we choose to cultivate, in every gesture that is born from love. Finding happiness is an intimate, honest, and profoundly conscious journey, a path that leads us to look inward, to know ourselves without filters, to discover what truly moves and sustains us, and from there we begin to build something bigger, a purpose. Cultivating self-love is not a destination, it is a practice. And when we do it, when we walk in alignment with who we are, the meaning of life ceases to be a search and becomes a presence. By living with intention and pursuing what we are passionate about, we find a deep satisfaction. Happiness is not a destination we arrive at, but a choice we make every single day. It is our capacity to live with gratitude, care for our relationships, honor our mental and physical health, and embrace the transformative power of love and compassion. Learning to let go of the past and stop anticipating the future is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves. Because while the mind remains trapped in what was or in what could happen, we miss the only real moment we have, the now. Louise Hay used to say that the point of power is always in the present, and he was right. Only when we return to the here and now can we heal, be grateful, and truly live. Being present is more than just a beautiful idea. It is a practice that transforms us. It allows us to feel every breath, to savor the small pleasures, and to discover the beauty that resides in the simple. Happiness does not always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it hides in the details. In a landscape that leaves us speechless, in a sincere, unhurried conversation, in the warmth of a cup held between our hands, or in that laughter that reminds us that we are still alive. When we give ourselves permission to be, to feel, and to be grateful, life stops being a race and begins to feel like a home. Happiness does not depend on what we possess, but on how we choose to look at life. It is an internal state that cannot be bought, inherited, or faked. It is cultivated in the way we perceive what happens to us and in how we choose to respond to each experience. Even in the hardest moments, when life brings us to our knees, there is a possibility of finding light. Not because everything is easy, but because in the midst of adversity, strength can also be born. When we choose to face challenges with bravery, instead of giving up or closing ourselves off, something within us is strengthened. Louise used to say that every thought we think is creating our future, and when in the midst of chaos, we choose a thought of faith, gratitude, or self-love, we are opening the door to a deeper, more real happiness, one that does not depend on external circumstances, but on the commitment we have to our inner peace. That is the happiness that can be felt even when nothing is perfect, because it is rooted in who we are, not in what we have. This journey of self-discovery is not linear or perfect, but it is profoundly transformative. As we let go of who we are not and embrace who we are, we begin to reconnect with our passions, our talents, and those dreams that we may have forgotten out of fear or habit. Exploring what moves us on the inside is essential to feeling alive, because when we live in alignment with what we love, life gains meaning. But we also need balance, and that balance is built when we take care of who we are on all levels, emotional, physical, mental, and spiritual, by nourishing our relationships with presence and love, by respecting our needs, and by giving our bodies the rest and nourishment they require. We strengthen a firm foundation from which happiness can grow, not as something fleeting, but as a way of inhabiting life with purpose. Happiness also requires something we sometimes avoid: responsibility. Not the kind that weighs us down, but the kind that liberates us. Because when we understand that our joy does not depend on what others do or what happens outside of us, something changes. We stop waiting and start building. Taking responsibility for our well-being is an act of inner power. It is choosing everyday habits that nourish us, thoughts that uplift us, and spaces that restore our peace. It is looking honestly at what does us good and having the courage to maintain it. Happiness is not something that arrives by chance. It is a state that is cultivated with attention, with self-love, and with a deep commitment to our growth, not as a demand, but as a gift that we first give to ourselves, and that from there we can share with those around us. Because when you feel full, you radiate it, you transmit it, and without saying much, you begin to be part of the world's transformation. When we choose to radiate joy, when we allow the love we cultivate within to extend outward, something changes not just within us but in the world we touch. Every kind gesture, every conscious word, every act of presence contributes to creating a more light-filled, harmonious, and truthful environment. Happiness is not a distant destination that we will one day reach if everything goes well. It is a path that is walked with intention, moment by moment. It is in our hands, in how we talk to ourselves, in how we treat ourselves, in how we choose to live. Loving ourselves, accepting ourselves, and living in harmony with who we are is not a luxury. It is the foundation of everything. Only from that place can we clearly see the beauty that surrounds us, understand the purpose behind our actions, and cultivate real, deep relationships where love is shared rather than demanded. And when we live from that authentic, present, connected place, we not only feel happier, but we also effortlessly help others remember that they can be happy too. What if happiness wasn't something we looked for outside of ourselves, but something that was silently waiting within us? Remember, joy is not hidden in external achievements or in perfect scenarios. It is in our interior, patiently waiting for the moment we decide to open the door, embrace it with gratitude, and allow it to transform us. Are you willing to look inward and awaken that light? Are you willing to stop postponing your well-being until everything fits into place? Embarking on the journey toward happiness is more than just a goal. It is a way of living. It is opening your heart even after you've closed it. It is expanding your soul when the routine tries to shrink it. It is walking with hope, even if we can't yet see the destination clearly. And in every step we take, if we do it with consciousness, new opportunities for growth appear, opportunities to let go, to explore who we truly are, and to celebrate every small wonder that life gives us. Happiness is found in every sunrise, in that feeling of starting anew with the possibility of doing things differently. It is an opportunity to appreciate what surrounds us, to leave behind what no longer serves us, and to move forward with more wisdom. Even failures have their value because they teach us, strengthen us, and push us to keep going. It is also found in the way we choose to live in the present, connected with what we feel, without being afraid to be emotional. Living consciously is allowing ourselves to laugh heartily, to cry when we need to, and to accept every emotion as part of our journey. Because in every experience, no matter how small it may seem, there is a reflection of all the growth we have achieved. Happiness is not a place you arrive at, or something that suddenly appears. It is a state that is built every day with our choices, with what we decide to think and say. It is formed in the everyday, in the simple moments that we often overlook. There is magic in the love we give, and in the love we receive. By sharing a sincere smile, a comforting hug, or words that lift someone's spirits, we create bonds that sustain us, real bonds that are not easily broken, and that remind us we are not alone. In that connection with others, in those gestures of affection and presence, happiness becomes stronger, closer, and more real. Because when we live from the heart, everything around us begins to flourish. Happiness manifests when we connect with who we truly are, when we stop living according to external expectations and begin to listen to that inner voice that guides us with calmness and truth. Accepting our light, but also our shadows, allows us to find balance, because it's not about being perfect, but about being sincere with ourselves. Learning to love ourselves unconditionally, without waiting to be different, is one of the most powerful acts we can perform. Recognizing that we are already enough, and that we lack nothing to deserve a full life, is the first step toward a more real and stable happiness. Balance is key to living with fulfillment. When we manage to harmonize our body, mind, and spirit, everything begins to flow with more calmness. Nourishing our body with what gives us energy, taking care of our thoughts, and learning to be present leads us to a more conscious and satisfying way of life. Living without rushing, savoring every moment, allows us to connect with what is essential. Enjoying what is close to us, what is simple, what is real, helps us to discover the beauty of life just as it is. Because when we are truly present, everything gains more meaning. Living in the here and now is one of the most powerful keys to truly experiencing happiness. When we stop carrying what has already passed and let go of the need to control what is to come, we begin to feel the freedom of being truly present. It is in the simple things that we find what is most valuable: in a sincere conversation, in a moment of calm, in an unexpected laugh. Authenticity becomes a guide, and life ceases to be a constant struggle to become a space where we can simply be. Every step we take, every encounter we experience, brings with it an opportunity to discover the joy that life still holds, even in the darkest moments. Sometimes that opportunity comes disguised as loss, rejection, or a night without comfort, like when someone we love turns their back on us just when we need them most, or when the body breaks from exhaustion, from an illness, from years of neglecting oneself. Every tear that falls is not in vain. It hurts, yes, but it also teaches us. It teaches us to set boundaries, to recognize what we deserve, and to rebuild ourselves from within. Life, with all its harshness, forces us to look inward and to find a strength we didn't know we had. In the midst of that healing process, we begin to understand that even in the cruelest experiences, there is also growth, learning, and a new possibility to begin again. Each day that dawns is a new opportunity to start over, to live with more consciousness, and to enjoy what is already here. Sometimes it doesn't seem that way, especially when we wake up with a tired soul or a broken heart. But even on those days, life continues to offer us small blessings. A kind word, a ray of sunshine, a moment of silence that comforts us. Happiness is not a distant thing. It is in the present, in accepting what arrives and finding meaning in what we experience. And when we fall, because we all fall, an enormous strength is also hidden there. In every time we get back up, even with our knees shaking, a new determination is born, one that is stronger and clearer. It is in that silent overcoming that true happiness is built. Resilience is that silent strength that allows us to get up after having hit rock bottom. It is not about pretending that everything is okay or suppressing the pain. It is about allowing ourselves to feel, to fall, to break, and yet still deciding to keep going. It is the ability to adapt to change, to learn from suffering, and to transform it into wisdom. Being resilient does not mean that it doesn't hurt. It means that the pain does not define us, that even if life rips away what we love most or brings us to our knees, something within us stays alive, waiting for a new opportunity to flourish. Imagine someone who has gone through a difficult illness, an unexpected diagnosis, months of treatments, a weakened body, a vanished routine, and yet in the midst of all that chaos, chooses to hold on to hope. They start eating with more awareness, begin to care for their mind, give thanks for the good days, and little by little they find joy again in things they didn't value before. That is resilience, the strength that appears when we feel we can't go on anymore, but we still do. And by doing so, we discover that we not only move forward, but we grow, we strengthen, and we learn to value life from a much more authentic place. Life finds its rhythm when we stop trying to fit into what we are not and begin to live from a place of authenticity. When we allow ourselves to be who we truly are, without masks, without imposed obligations, everything begins to feel lighter and more sincere. Happiness is not about doing more or running around all day looking for results. It is about learning to value time as a treasure that doesn't return, in knowing how to stop, breathe, look out the window, and simply be. In those moments of pause and contemplation, the soul rests, finds order, and remembers what truly matters. Living with consciousness is giving ourselves permission to enjoy the everyday without rush, without demands, because in the simple, when we truly live it, the most profound meaning is revealed. In moments of great uncertainty, when life changes in an instant, when something or someone important leaves, we feel the ground tremble beneath our feet, and yet it is precisely there that the greatest opportunities for growth are born. Every loss, Every unexpected change invites us to look inward and to let go of control, to stop fighting against what we cannot change and begin to trust in the flow of life. Because when we stop resisting, something within us relaxes